Don't be ridiculous, Franklin. I've read the files. The Doctor is a man.
I've had an upgrade. Hi.
Shut up. Just shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut it up.
Nerdrotic.com.
After all of the franchises that have been vandalized, deconstructed, and completely destroyed by the entertainment industry, Doctor Who remains the worst case. The absolute best or worst example of everything woke turns to shit, or get woke, go broke, choose whatever you like. So why am I reviewing the premiere of Series 13, or Doctor Who Flux? And the first episode was called The Halloween Apocalypse. Well, we've already had the Doctor Who Apocalypse, and this entire season and all of my reviews will be nothing more than an autopsy. Yes, as I reported here, Russell T Davies, the great showrunner who brought Doctor Who back, who created some of the best television I've ever seen, is returning. And if there was anything that could excite Doctor Who fans, yours truly included, it would be Bad Wolf and Russell T Davies coming back. Unfortunately, I think this might be too late, as we did get the ratings for the first season after this announcement of Russell T Davies, and they were the lowest season premiere ratings in the history of New Who. And the news doesn't get any better, because we did get the ratings in for America, a country that's counted in the past, but it's much more important now, considering that the BBC has lost control of the show and relies more on the international licensing. But let's go ahead and hear the spin from the BBC. Explaining the figures for Flux's first episode, the BBC's Lizo cannot pronounce your last name, confirmed that although the 4.43 million figure is down on the 4.88 million figure who tuned in to Spyfall, or more importantly, the people who didn't tune in to Spyfall, it marks an uptick compared to most of, in quotes, season 12's remaining episodes. Wow, they are reaching. As Flux, and yes, that's what the series is called, because they don't want to call it Series 13, but we know what the Flux you're doing is a 6-episode arc rather than a standalone story. There's every chance those numbers could rise, he added, and there's every chance they could fall off a cliff. So how bad were the ratings here in the States? How about abysmal? 339,000 whole people watched Doctor Who on Halloween. And even worse, that key demographic, the number that actually matters, it was a 0.08, meaning that is 0.08% of the 18 to 49 demographic in the United States. 112,000 people out of that 339,000 people are the ones who actually count. For advertisers, the average amount of people who watch a Critical Drinker video in the first 20 minutes. Overall, I thought Doctor Who Flux sucked, but it wasn't the worst Doctor Who episode in the Chibnall first female Doctor played by Jodie Whittaker era. And there really isn't much to break down, because all they did was introduce characters. Of course, the episode starts out with an arbitrary countdown clock, because that's what Chibnall does to create false tension. Yaz and the first female Doctor played by Jodie Whittaker are in a little trouble, but when they get out of that trouble, they land in the TARDIS on a bed, a double bed in the console room. And you can hear the shippers squee. Unfortunately, I think that's all you're gonna get. But this was a historic moment. This is what Chris Chibnall set out to do. This was a penisless TARDIS. So when a 10-year-old is telling you a story, or a full-grown adult on Twitter, they go, and then, that's exactly what this episode was. And then we're introduced to Joseph Williamson, a philanthropist, historical figure known for digging random holes. And in this episode, he's digging random holes. And then we meet the new companion, Dan, who apparently is kind of a loser and gives tours at the Liverpool Museum, even though he doesn't work there. And then we meet Diane, who actually works at the museum, his date for that evening. And then 2 non-binary security guards release our villain, who I had to look up on IMDb. And then we meet Carvanista, a dog man who abducts Dan. And then we meet John and Anna in the Arctic Circle. And then we meet Claire, who knows the Doctor, but the Doctor doesn't know her. And then a weeping angel appears and abducts Claire. And then we meet Vinder on Outpost Rose. And then a couple of classic Sontarans show up. And then we find out our mysterious villain, whose name I had to look up on IMDb, has known the Doctor all along, but the Doctor doesn't know him. And then our mysterious villain, whose name I had to look up on IMDb, attacks John and Anna in the Arctic Circle. And then John dies because he's a disposable white guy. And then we find out Anna is actually the sister of the unknown villain, whose name I had to look up on IMDb. And then she turns out to be an unknown villain whose name I had to look up on IMDb. And then we find out the Flux is a storm destroying the entire fabric of time and space. And then the worst news comes of all. We find out this has something to do with the Division, which of course is baked into the Timeless Children storyline. The thing that killed Doctor Who. I know there were some holding out hope that the Flux would fix the Timeless Children, and while that still could happen, I highly doubt it. If the Timeless Children was the Last Jedi of Doctor Who, then the Flux is the Rise of Skywalker of Doctor Who. This episode was nothing but a giant mystery box and Chibnall trying to do his best Stephen Moffat imitation. What's mystery box storytelling? Simply put, it's more of an emphasis on the mystery than the actual resolution, with either an unreliable narrator or underdeveloped characters put in random situations, which leads to a lot of online theories and speculation, generally resolved with a contrived deus ex machina. Some writers can pull it off, most can't. With the return of Russell T Davies combined with what I've seen from Flux, the BBC has gone right up to, but just short of, admitting failure. The Timeless Children is a deal breaker, and most of the fandom isn't coming back unless that is completely retconned. And even if it is retconned, you're not going to get everyone back. This is the portion of the video where we go to the people and Rotten Tomatoes, and with the audience score, the story remains the same. Doctor Who Series 11 is at 20%, Doctor Who Series 12 is at 16%, and Doctor Who Series 13, The Flux, is at 32%. From 1 hour ago, Richard A., half star, more terrible acting and storytelling from a corpse of a franchise. Once the winner of so many awards, now struggling with viewing figures. Hopefully RTD will save the show. Matt J., 1 star. Plot was convoluted with pacing all over the place. Things felt rushed, particularly with character introductions and introducing the viewer to plot points. There was bad dialogue, with characters delivering cheesy, hammy lines and not really doing what is being shown. John Bishop's character provided a good comic relief and was one of the few good points of the show. Interactions involving his character felt fresh and was genuinely enjoyable. I would say John Bishop's performance was capable at best, but comparing it to the rest of Chibnall Who, that's award-winning. Todd B., half star from 4 hours ago. This was a complete disjointed mess. The writing was bad, the acting was worse. Not to mention, after The Timeless Child, the entire series makes no sense. The Doctor is not a Time Lord. That is technically true because the Time Lords appropriated their power from the little portal baby. Barry S., 1.5 stars. Better than bad, but still not good. That will be my assessment. I would love to hope that the series improves. At least the Committee for Inclusion and Diversity that has dominated previous seasons are quieter. Chibnall, the writers, and the committee have done so much damage it seems almost impossible to recover from these wounds. David R. from 14 hours ago, half star. Sorry not enjoying Doctor Who anymore and wish it was otherwise. We all do. Juan P., half star. From 23 hours ago, I can't wait for Chibnall to be flushed or fluxed or effed and for Russell T Davies to again save the franchise. Peter C. with a very thoughtful 2.5 stars. To be fair, it wasn't all that bad, but I think Chibnall has lost his way a bit. I would argue he never had a way. When he took over as showrunner, he had his own ideas about in what direction he wanted to take the show. I totally disagree with it, and so did a lot of others. And there were a lot of others. But they were his ideas, and he had a good crack at it. Obviously aware of the criticism, he seemed to throw everything against the wall to see what sticks. So now we have a fan-servicing wannabe epic. I would say a wannabe fan-servicing epic. Another universe-ending story with as many classic monsters as he can stuff in. Also, to me, Chibnall seems to have a stilted writing style, if that's what you want to call it. The dialogue is unnatural. Speaking of unnatural, I just can't get past Jodie's actions and weird expressions on her face. I've tried. Hopefully things will pick up in episode 2. To be fair, there were only 40 audience reviews, but I'm guessing the number isn't going to go up as the audience review numbers go up. The one thing that won't be going up is the ratings for the rest of Doctor Who Series 13. But I did want to point out one thing. You just heard some thoughtful and sometimes passionate reviews. Does that sound like a bunch of alt-right istophobes to you, or does it sound like Doctor Who fans? And after watching the show that they helped build to what it is, for decades being completely deconstructed and destroyed by ideologues, you can't blame them for being upset. And then add to that the fans being vilified for voicing their opinions, and that explains why the ratings won't go up and Russell T Davies has a monumental and almost impossible task on his hands. Hypothetically, if Russell T Davies was to retcon The Timeless Children, he wouldn't be just retconning a creative decision, he'd be retconning an ideological decision, one that would be considered heresy to the cult. But if they do turn things around, I will be very happy to admit I am wrong. Yes, there was a lot to talk about in this episode that very few people watched. Rose was mentioned, the Sontarans returned, the Weeping Angels returned, and they introduced 10,000 characters. Unfortunately, every bit of those were more interesting than the first female Doctor played by Jodie Whittaker, who we will lovingly call Dr. Karen. And until that problem is fixed, nothing is fixed. My good friend Yellow Flash has pointed out in the past that the attitude of the general beloved franchise nowadays is, are you good enough to be our fans? When the truth of the matter is, they don't deserve you. If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, I thank you for listening this long. I will see you in the next video.
Nerdrotic.com. Please subscribe.